Page 16, rates and unit rates. Practice number 2. Rates and unit rates. Practice number 2. All right, we've been talking about rates. That's what we've talked about earlier this week. Can anyone tell me what a rate is? Remind me. What is a rate? You can look on page 14. There's a definition of a rate. What is a rate? Was someone at home online? Were you going to answer my question? What is special about a rate? Yeah, what is a rate? You got it. It's a ratio with 2 different measurements. So we're comparing things that are different. Cats and dogs. It's always my go-to for labels. Cupcakes compared to cookies. Totally different, right? Apple phones to Android phones. Completely different. Right? We're comparing things with different measurements. So that's what a rate is. What's a unit rate? What's different about a unit rate? What's special about a unit rate? What can you tell me about a unit rate? What is a unit rate? It's on page 14 again if you want to look up the definition of a unit rate. Oh, I had to squeeze that in there. A unit rate. A rate compares 500 miles in 10 hours. But a unit rate is different. A unit rate has a specific thing. Anyone know what that unit rate is? What's specific about a unit rate? What's special about a unit rate? What does it say right here? The denominator, which is the bottom number, has to be 1. So it's comparing something to 1. All right, we're going to practice taking a rate and changing it to a unit rate. So make sure you have your calculator ready. That calculator, whew, makes life a lot easier. Rates and unit rates, practice number 2. We're going to do some practice. Problem number 1. My rate, my comparison, is 8 controllers whether that's a game controller to your Xbox or the controller to your TV. 8 controllers have 48 buttons. What am I comparing? controllers and buttons. Now, let's talk about it. Would it make more sense for me to put the controllers in groups of 1? Or would it make more sense for me to take all of the buttons and put the buttons in groups of 1? Should I pop all of the buttons off? No, I'm not going to take all of the buttons off and put them in individual piles. I'm going to take the controllers and put one controller, one controller, one controller, one controller, right? So we need to figure out one controller has how many buttons? I need to make a unit rate. One controller has how many buttons? So I need to use my calculator and I need to divide. My rate, even though it says controllers first, my rate is buttons over controllers. How many buttons are there? How many buttons in my story problem? 48 over 8 controllers. Grab your calculator. Because to change to a unit rate, make a fraction. I did that. Divide the numerator by the denominator. My fraction was 48 buttons over 8 controllers. So we're going to divide 48 divided by 8. Oh, that's on the wrong side. Is 6. My unit rate is 6 buttons per 1 controller. Let's try another one. 7 tickets cost $56. All right, so let's think about this. Am I going to say tickets per dollar or dollars per ticket? Dollars per ticket. So I'm going to have to put tickets in my denominator. 1 ticket. So let's make our fraction. It's dollars to tickets. My information tells me $56 for 7 tickets. Make a fraction. Did it. What do I do now? Divide what? Yeah, the numerator, which is 56, divided by the denominator, which is 7. And I get an answer of 8, which is $8 per ticket. $8 for 1 ticket. Because I did numerator divided by denominator. You have to think when you set these up. Which one makes more sense? Which one's going to be in the numerator? Which one's going to be in the denominator? You have to think about it. Does it make more sense if you flip it around? And then sometimes it doesn't matter. Number 3, 35 copies in 7 minutes. $35 copies in 7 minutes. Maybe I'm copying a really big packet. Maybe it's going to take a little while. It's not boop fast. Maybe it takes a little bit. $35 copies in 7 minutes. Now, I could do either. Could you say how many copies in 1 minute? Does that make sense? Yeah. Does it make sense to say how many minutes for 1 copy? Yeah, I mean, that both work. So sometimes we have to just look and say, you know what? I'm going to put the smaller number in the denominator, because that makes more sense. If you look, they're all big number minus or divided by small number for the most part. So my fraction is 35 over 7. 35 copies in 7 minutes. Can you tell me how many copies I get in 1 minute? Yeah, you divide. 35 divided by 7 is 5 copies in 1 minute. Number 4, 3 tanks with 234 fish. Am I looking to see how many fish per tank or how many tanks per fish? Fish per tank. If I said how many tanks per fish, you're not even gonna have a full tank, right? It's gonna be like, oh, this little tiny bit of the tank is for this fish, and this little tiny bit of the tank is for this fish. 3 tanks with 234 fish. So I want to know per 1 tank. My fraction is fish per tank. I'm seeing people pressing the buttons. Good work. Type it in that calculator. 234 fish are in 3 tanks. How many fish are in 1 tank? $78 fish per tank. That's the unit rate. Could you tell me how many fish were in 2 tanks? What would you do? 78 times 2. Could you tell me how many fish were in 47 tanks? If 78 fish are in 1 tank, multiply that by 47 to figure out how many fish are in 47 tanks. All right, let's keep going. We've got a few more. Number 5. I got really creative making up this problem. 255 points for defeating, let me fix that E, for defeating 8 enemies. And EMIES. I'll rewrite that one too. That's hard to see. My handwriting today. 255 points for defeating 8 enemies. What do we think? Points per enemy or enemy per points? Which one do you think is going to be the unit of 1?
Enemy per points.
We are going to go how many points for 1 enemy? How many points for 1 enemy? And again, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time in our 7th grade math world, it's usually going to be the greater number divided by the less number. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. But a majority of the time it is. How many points? It's 255 points for defeating 8 enemies. How many points is it to defeat 1 enemy? $255 divided by 8. Oh, what happens when it's a decimal? Is that okay? Decimals happen. Don't panic. We're just going to put 31.875 points. It's okay. Decimals are numbers too. Don't panic. We're okay. Double check it. I mean, always, if you get a decimal answer, type it in your calculator again. Make sure you did it correctly, but that's all right. I mean, sometimes in video games, do decimals happen in your points? Yeah. All right, let's try 8 hours to drive 456 miles. I'm comparing hours, how long I'm in the car, to miles, how far I drove. What do we want our fraction to be? Is our fraction hours over miles? Or is our fraction miles over hours? What do you think? I want 1 hour. How far do I go in 1 hour? Because if I asked you how far or how long does it take to go 1 mile, it's a really small number, right? We're probably going to measure it in hours. I could ask, and you would do 8 divided by 456. That's fine. But we're going to do 456 miles divided by 8 hours. It's all right. $456 divided by 8 hours is 57 miles in 1 hour. All right, last 2. Number 7. 5 boxes hold 105 books. if I asked how many books per box, you could give me an answer. I could also ask how many boxes per book, but that doesn't make any sense because boxes divided by books is a tiny number. 5 divided by 105, no thanks. I'm going to do books divided by boxes. I want one box. How many books fit in one box? So 105 divided by 5. How many books fit in one box? 21 books. Good. Last one. 84 customers over 6 days. 84 customers over 6 days. $84 customers over 6 days. How many customers in 1 day? You try it out. How many customers in 1 day? 84 customers over 6 days. How many customers in 1 day? Well, I want days to be 1, so I'm going to take customers divided by days. 84 divided by 6, 14 customers. So when it asks you, like in math games, it gives you a situation, and then at the end, the bottom, it says the label enemy, or the label hour, or the label box, or the label day. You're doing the number divided by the number with that label. You're always dividing by the number with the label.